So I met Dr. Barrie Sands a couple times now. I've met her at Thriving Pet Expo and Feed Real. And I got to chat with her for a minute at Feed Real, and I was blown away by her. Dr. Barrie Sands is not your average veterinarian. She is an ER vet in Southern California. She also has delved deep into spirituality. She went to the Heart Math Institute. She has a book available, which I think it's like the antics of working at the ER. Is that what that's all about? And and so um, she realized that people were losing their mind, and she realized that people couldn't self-regulate. So she dove into helping not only the pet, but the human, because it seems to be a symbiotic relationship. So, Dr. Barrie, how'd you get started in this? And thank you for being here today.
Oh, Papa, you're welcome. It's an honor to be here with your community, and any chance I get to, shine a little bit of a different light on healing is always a great opportunity for me. And how I got into being a holistic veterinarian, I guess, is that your question? Was because it was just a natural progression. Actually, when I was young, I very much was resonated with the natural world around me. I had a very unique, well, I don't know if it's unique, but it was just very amazing. I feel like every kid has these amazing dreams and ability to have this imagination that just transcends all these different realities. Except as we grow up, those they get filtered and they get changed and they get squashed and they get redirected into some other way. And for me as a child, I was able to keep that in my consciousness. And I had a very um, uh, clear relationship with the things that were not seen, what I call the in-betweens. And in reality, in my dream states, where I'd have a lot of visions and I would go traveling and see other realms and other places that just were completely real to me. And so there has
Well,
always been this
how old
fascination.
were you when, I mean, like, this is crazy. Were you very young and you didn't like, did you realize that this is like supernaturally extraordinary?
No, I thought it was normal. I thought all kids did this. I was as far back as I can remember. My first memory is when I was 2 years old, climbing out of my crib, and it didn't go well. But and dreaming, since I was, 5 years old, I've had all these the knowledge of a lot of different realms. Um, we call them like the senses of clairaudience, clairsentience, um, clairvoyance, things like that, like those extrasensory perceptions of different realms. And so I always had that sort of ability and to see that and experience that world. And that just led me into a very lucid type of dreaming state. Things like astral projection and those kind of weird things that we talk about now. But that was normal to me. That was my normal life. And I thought it was normal for everybody. And so when I started, as I grew older and would have these conversations with kids, of my age in school, not everybody had those experiences or at least remembered them. So I kind of stopped talking about it, but that led me really into this knowing that there's just many, many different ways to see things and many perspectives that we can have. And that led me into studying more esoteric philosophies like Taoism and Buddhism, Confucianism, and Ayurvedic medicine, and just different cultures that embrace spirituality, right? Shamanic traditions and ancient healing techniques. And so I was very fascinated with that as a child. Fast forward to life, I ended up going to veterinary school and learning about regular veterinary medicine and becoming a conventional veterinarian. One of the driving forces for me to become a veterinarian, honestly, was because I wanted to study dolphins and I wanted to study dreams and I wanted to study dolphin dreams. So
That's
I figured
amazing.
I figured there was some connection somehow. And so I said, well, I should be a veterinarian, then I could be with dolphins. And it didn't quite work out that way. But, so I became conventionally trained and was in private practice and went into the emergency realm because being a conventionally trained veterinarian or doctor, what we learn in school shines in the emergency room. That's where it belongs. It belongs in the acute stages, the traumas, the sepsis, the pharmaceuticals are designed in for that realm. That's where it works the best. When it comes to healing, like true healing and chronic conditions, I found that conventional medicine really fell short, and that's where I was kind of circling back and now say, okay, well, I'm going to re-embrace, my thoughts as a child, and I'm going to learn traditional Chinese medicine, and I'm going to learn about the Ayurvedic medicine and herbal therapies and homeopathy, because those things made sense in the world of healing and, and energy, and then you dive a little bit deeper and there's all these mind, body, spirit levels of healing. And at the top of all of this is the energy, what fuels our system and how does that work?
So,
And so
can
then,
you explain what that means? What is energy? Like, it's so esoteric. You can't really stick a fork in it. And I think everybody might have their own idea of what that is. Can you help me with that?
yeah. So, I mean, energy, just by definition, is a force that creates movement and transformation or change. That's kind of basically what energy is. And it comes in all different forms. It can come in the form of what we call kinetic energy, which is energy that's in motion. Potential energy, like how much you have stored up to use, right? Then you have the energy that's electromagnetic, wave of energies. There's light energy, sound energy. All those things they're just, the sun radiates energy. That's energy. And the sun radiates all the electromagnetic frequencies that are coming into, our planet. Then there's the energy that exists in the in-betweens, which is the space, which is a fascinating conversation to get into.
So, what do you call that? What do you call that energy?
The energy in the space,
Yeah,
it has a name. It's called the 0 point energy.
I've never heard
It's
that term ever.
Yeah, well, it's also called the matrix,
Oh,
or the field. When people talk about this field of energy, the quantum field, that's what they're sort of referring to. The word ether has been used to describe like the space between things,
the in between.
the in-betweens, like the space between me and my computer or me and you, even though you're like wherever you are, we're still connected through this space. And it's called 0 point energy. Why? Because now I don't know if your viewers are going to be interested in this, but it's kind of like the beginning of all things, where there was an experiment where physicists are trying to figure out like what's in the nothing, right? They called it dark matter because they didn't think it had anything in it. It was just this black space, between planets and stars and galaxies and stuff. But what they found was when they took a vacuum of space and they cooled it down to 0 degrees Kelvin, which is absolute zero. It's super, 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 super cold. And so there's no thermal energy. So they thought that everything would be frozen and you'd see absolutely nothing in the cold space of the nothingness, there'd be nothing. But what they found was not that. They found that it is a space that is teeming with a sea of energy and particles, these tiny subatomic particles that are just coming in and out of existence. They call it this, virtual fluctuation of particles. And that is the stuff that fuels everything. That's the energy.
So, so they can see it at like sub freezing temperatures. I know a little bit about like the proton colliding machine, and that they're like trying to explore what happens when they throw them together, and the energy that comes off of it and the black hole, and all of it is a little scary. But also exciting. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, are we playing with fire on this, or what are we doing here? Because we just don't know what the outcome's gonna be, do we? Maybe they do. They're postulating it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think this is not the place to go into that conversation about like the quantum theories, and if that's a really really long conversation. And I'm not a physicist, but I do understand a lot of the principles and how it pertains to biology. Kind of that's where I come from, because you know uh, they they knew about this field of energy, which is, I think, is really the most important topic for us to talk about. Is the source of this energy was known, back in the 100 and some odd years ago. They knew it existed, and there was this gap in the ability to want to learn about it. And then there has been a separation between the conversation between physicists and biologists. And that's an important concept, I think, to wrap your head around, because what's in between physics and biology is chemistry. And energy drives physics, physics drives chemistry, chemistry drives biology. But ultimately, energy drives biology. And so we got caught up in the chemical world, meaning pharmaceuticals, right? Then creating pharmaceuticals to create the healing of biology, and sort of didn't really talk about how energy can create the healing on biology. And that's all the lost ancient wisdom, that have been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Well, and I think homeopathy is such a beautiful modality because it really deals with the life force, the vitality, and the mental, and even some spiritual well-being, and
Yeah,
and plant
absolutely.
medicine even.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, homeopathy, that's the principle why homeopathy works, is because of quantum physics. It's the energy source of I mean, homeopathy is a dilution of a dilution of a dilution of a dilution, so that the actual plant that you actually started out with is no longer even there. It's the essence, and it's the vibration of the molecules of that makes it, that resonates at that certain frequency that is in that plant. And when you put it in your body, it will interact with the system that it resonates with. And that's where the healing happens. It's like the same concept of like an opera singer breaking a glass. You have this glass, and she sings this tone, and all of a sudden the molecules of the glass start to vibrate, and then it shatters. And it shatters because the frequency of her voice and the frequency of the glass are at the same frequency. And
Resonance.
so it resonates, and then it breaks. They call it constructive interference, and then it just amplifies the situation and it explodes. It's kind of like what homeopathy is. And that's why classical homeopaths are so like stringent, I think, about getting, the right homeopathic remedy with, the system. And there's like one remedy for this one system. That's where you find a really good homeopath, and that's not me.
Yeah, no, it's tough. The chronic prescribers, those that are classically trained, it is a really tough thing to like take one remedy and wait for a long time for it to do its
Yeah,
job. Yeah, I was,
but honestly, I think if you find someone who's really good at homeopathy, like deeply good at it, when you take that remedy, it will work fast.
it does.
It'll work
I
very
actually have a wonderful homeopath from India. So India is so into homeopathy and she's like world acclaimed homeopath and we meet on Zoom and
Oh,
she
that's awesome.
prescribes a remedy for me like that and I think it was life-saving. So yeah, if you guys ever want her name, I can hand that out to you because she is amazing and affordable too. So that's awesome, but I've never heard it explained that way. Dr. Barry, that's awesome. That actually really helped me wrap my brain around the energetics. I always think of homeopathy as like nanoparticle medicine, but the resonating with the glass shatter, that just like clenched it in my mind. Thank you for that.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's how these things. I try to explain things how they make sense to me and how I learned how it makes sense. And when we talk about energy, things like Reiki or quantum healing, those kind of ways. It's like, well, how does that work? What are you doing, and how can that manifest, and how can I be able to sit on my computer, have a telemedicine conversation with someone, across the country and create a healing in their animal? Like, how is that possible? Well, it's not, it's a known phenomenon. It's called entanglement. It's the entanglement theory, quantum entanglement. And basically what that is that there was an experiment that was done where they took a photon, which is a light, an essence of light, a quantum of light, and they split it in half. And they put one particle in, the experiment took the particles in a fiber optic cable, and they put them about 14 miles each way in each direction apart. And the experiment was they would want to see if what they did to one particle on this side, what would happen to the particle on the other side. And they found that when whatever they did to the one particle, the other particle did the exact same thing instantaneously, except in slightly in the opposite direction, but they moved in the same time, so instantaneously. So there was no lag time between the two. And that was how the theory of entanglement came to be. When Einstein found out about this experiment, he called it spooky action at a distance, because he couldn't understand, how things can happen, because it goes faster than the speed of light. And we all believed that nothing can go faster than the speed of light, but it does. That's an instantaneous thing. Our bodies move faster than the speed of light. Everything in our system is coherent and moving at the same time, and everything is talking to everything simultaneously. That's how we don't fall apart. If we waited for things to happen at the speed of light in our bodies, it would take too long. There was a recent calculation from a physicist called Nassim Haramein. And if anyone's interested in delving deeper into this, he's an amazing, incredible physicist. He basically calculated the speed of instantaneousness. It actually has a speed to
Oh
it.
my gosh.
And it's 10 to the power of 40 times faster than the speed of light.
That's
That is,
that's mind-boggling.
it's an
How do you
incredible.
measure that? I mean, I have more questions on this, but I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. I could, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So how do you use this in healing? So you mentioned like Reiki, there's like distance muscle testing, there's energetics. We've had people that do frequency healing with like music, tuning forks, AO scans, things like that. Um,
Yeah.
Water, we had one doctor, a human doctor that represented NES, NES Health, I think. So they had the imprinted water.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I actually love that product.
I do too. I had the Nest, I had the Nest machine for a little bit. Actually, I love it. They're called infoceuticals.
Infoceuticals, exactly. And I
Infoceuticals.
had, so my dog, when I got him, he was a Facebook giveaway. This dog had no idea the family was dumping him. Like he was shut down so bad. He sat in the corner of my living room and wouldn't eat, wouldn't pee, wouldn't leave the corner, was frozen trauma. And I took the ESR, the emotional stress relief, put it
Yeah.
on him, went to make a smoothie, and he came around the corner with a ball in his mouth
Wow.
in
What a
5 minutes. It was amazing. I am like so all about that.
I got just got goosebumps when you said that.
Yeah, it really worked. It really
Yeah.
worked. And I had to give it to him maybe a week later and then maybe 1 month later. But after that, he was all in.
You're right. You know, the cool thing about it is like, well, how does that work? And it's all it is. So think of it this way. And we are our bodies, our three-dimensional bodies are um, a gravitationally organized set of photons. Like we are organized light that is so dense that we are constructed into this physical body in this three-dimensional space, which is Earth, right? This whole place that we live in is three dimensions. Um, and but beyond us, there's energy. We live in a sea of energy. We have chakras, right? We think about chakras and balancing our chakras. Chakras are energy wheels that go down the center of our bodies, from front and back. And we connect with the outside fields through these chakras. It feeds our system and we release energy through it, you know. We have our heart emits an electromagnetic field or a magnetic field that is huge. It's been measured. It goes out at least 9 feet from us. And that's what's measurable. It's if it goes out further than that. And around our bodies, when we emit this field, it looks like a toroid. It's like it comes around like an apple, like it goes through the core and then around and then underneath, you know, around. Like when people are in meditation and they say ground your feet, connect to the center of the earth, right? And then imagine a tube of light up your spine as it's coming out of your head, connecting to source, and it's coming around and in and through and in. So this is the actual shape of the energy fields. It's, you know, we've measured this, it's known, and everything in existence has the same energy field, from a proton to an electron to a galaxy. It's all the same energy field. You know, whether you're a plant, a fruit, an apple, an animal, a human, a tree, it doesn't matter. It's the same field. And we are constantly interacting with this field of energy around us. And in this field is information. It's what's informing our systems of how to be a system. You know, we are so incredibly complex. I don't think a lot of people stop to think about that we have, you know, 50 to 70 trillion cells that are undergoing a quadrillion reactions every second. And there's something that is orchestrating that, because we as humans cannot think about DNA expression and protein folding and trying to figure out where to send that protein, how to get it out of out of the cell to where it's got to be in an efficient way, in an efficient time, you know, and times that by 70,000, 70 trillion cells. It's not possible. So then the question is, how is this happening? Where's the intelligence? It's this divine intelligence, you know, that we have.
So can we communicate with those cells? Can
Yes.
we
Absolutely, we can communicate with those cells. Um,
I literally have never thought about saying, hey, mitochondria, you need to step it up. Like, how do you do that?
well, just like you just did. I mean, I literally talk to my cells every day. And I talk to my immune system a lot. And I have to say, so um, we talk to our bodies, uh, well, we could talk to it verbally, right, through our intentions, but we talk to our bodies through our emotions. That is the beauty of being, in this humanness, is our ability to have emotions, right? Because emotions are really energy in motion,
Oh,
emotion,
and
right? Energy
yeah.
in motion. And each emotion has a frequency and a vibration. And we know that as like a scale, the really from really really high vibrations, like the emotions of love and joy and awe and gratitude and care, appreciation. All those are really high vibration emotions. And then you have the lower vibration emotions, like fear, anxiety, worry, judgment, hate, intolerance, those kind of things. So those are really, depression. I mean, as I'm saying it, you could just feel yourself
I
going.
know, I could feel it. It struck me in my heart. I was like, oh, that actually hurt.
Yeah, right. You just say it's like, ugh. And our cells. All right, think of it this way. Um, if we are connected to the universal source of all things, right? Say everyone says we're all one, right? There's such a loose terminology when people say, "Oh, we're all one." What does that really mean? And can you think about that on a real way? We are connected to this absolute source of energy, which is, say, the universe, right? This universal energy.
Or some divine
Yeah,
source.
right.
Because
Or this,
I do totally think there's divine intelligence. There has
yeah,
to be. There
there
has,
is, right? So if you think about it from a quantum physics point of view, this divine source of energy is this matrix, is this field of all things where everything is created. And tapping into that is our bodies that tap into that. The default of the energy in the universe is to be completely coherent, right? It wants to be this organized coherency. Everything in the universe spins. Everything is constantly spinning. Our atoms are spinning. Our subatomic particles are spinning. Our protons are spinning. Our electrons are spinning. The galaxies are spinning. Our solar system, everything is constantly spinning. And it's all interconnected, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so my soul, right? So there's this whole these ancient mantras that they're there for a reason. And okay, so if everything is is connected in the universe, and we are part of that, and our cells are part of that, and our atoms are part of that, and our DNA is part of that, then there has to be a way that to connect and speak to that. If it was an emotion, with a frequency of an emotion, what emotion would it be that could give you the highest vibration to be able to connect with this high source of information? um,
it'd be love.
it'd be love, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this super, and when they say, well, love is all you need, it's kind of true. Like it's really true. I found that in the depths of the complexity of all of these things, the simplicity of it is love heals. And we know that in our practices, we know that with our relationships, we know that through intuitively, right? So when you say, how do I talk to my cells, just send them love and gratitude, because that is the energy that will fuel the system, so that the system works in the most coherent way that it knows how, in connection to source.
And with our pets, I think it's easier, I hate to say it, but to love our pets more
Oh,
than
absolutely.
people. So, so I can
Yeah,
tell you when my parents died, I didn't cry for them like I cried for my corgi that died. I mean, I
right,
cried for my corgi for like 2 solid months. I was like,
right. Well,
yeah, my parents lived
sure.
a good life. Good job, guys. But my corgi died too soon. And yeah,
I
it
know.
was
Well, that's pure because that's pure love, right? That's the pure unconditional love that we have with them. And that's the feeling. So even if you're like, well, I don't know, I don't, if you're trying to tap into that feeling and you can't find it, well, then just go to your pet, gaze into their eyes and connect with their hearts, and that's how we can help each other with our pets, how we can heal ourselves and how we can help our pets heal is through that entanglement of our energies going back and forth between the species.
I think it's so interesting because I got this dog. I did a glacier peak when he first came. He had tons and tons of allergies, had to do a really restricted diet. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. He was 3 years old, partially blind, limping, already had hip arthritis, like a train wreck. And about a year later, I did another glacier peak, and it was all my allergies. It was, it could have been my glacier peak. Like I looked at that and went, like this is so weird. How could this be? And I even talked to Dr. Margot Roman about it. I was like, hey, is this because we're sharing like microbiome and things like that? And she was like, yeah, I actually think that you're hugging them, you're loving them, you're petting them, and you guys are transferring that microbiome. But this is a little different. This is
Yeah,
energetic.
this is different. So I've been studying this for a while, the energetics between the human animal bond and why that happens. And it is because through the entanglement of our energy fields and the connections that we have and the emotions that we are kind of putting out um, through each other, the frequencies are being picked up at an epigenetic level, which means that in the body of the dog um, is sensing the vibrations inside their cells, which goes down to the DNA, which is what epigenetics means. Epigenetics means the influence of genetic expression that is from outside sources, like lifestyles and diets and, thoughts, emotions, things like that. And that is actually has the ability to create a gene to be turned on or turned off and express a certain disease process. I'll backtrack a little bit. The reason why I became so fascinated in this relationship is because in my emergency practice over the decades that I've been there, I noticed that there was this uncanny phenomenon where the animal and the human had the same exact disease,
So,
and it
and I've heard that over and over, and I've pondered
over and
it. I'm
over.
like, is it because they're exposed to like mold in the house together? Or so tell me what you think, because I've struggled with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, things really uncanny things. I've seen brain tumors shared. I've seen cardiac arrhythmias, ocular issues, other cancers, kidney disease, diabetes. On and on and on. Like these weird kind of things that you wouldn't expect to be like, oh, we're sharing a microbiome, that kind of stuff. Or we live in the same house and someone smokes. It's not. It's more than that. It's an energetic thing and through the mechanisms I kind of talked about before, this entanglement um, of our fields, there is when an animal is emotionally invested in a person, and it's interesting because the relationship that I've seen with the person and the animal having the same disease condition, it's usually the one that the animal is most bonded to, right? The one that the animal is most has this emotional relevancy to. So there's that connection between the heart and the love that they have. And it's not to say that I gave my dog a disease, right? That's never the
Well,
take
and I
home.
hear that. Like I hear people go, I don't want my dog to love me so much that they get sick. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait,
no, that's
I
not,
okay, thank you for clarifying that because people
yeah,
are freaked out. There's a
no.
lot of PTSD in pet ownership now.
Yeah. So it's never about that. The relationship that we have with our animals is I think it's a contractual bond that's made, right? There's no randomness around what animal shows up in what person's life. There's always a story that how you guys got together, and there's always a reason, and it's really to to teach us as humans to be better humans. How can I be a better human in the face of my existence, my reality, my relationships? And our animals are there to be sort of like our mirrors and our reflections and our teachers, right? Because they are so connected with our hearts. So it's never about um, turning to your animal and saying, "Oh my God, I gave you a disease," or I'm going to be worried that you're going to get something from me. It's more about looking inward and saying, what is it about me that, how did I get this condition in the first place? And because there are people that I've had situations where the animal will get a condition so that the human doesn't.
And I've wondered about that. Some people have been like, yeah, that dog took that disease for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how? I don't get that. Like I I think about it and I ponder it, but I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's this weird, wonky, quantum energetic world, of information exchange at this level that you can't see.
I'm
You
going to
know,
share with you a really quirky story, and I think you'll dig it. I do muscle testing, and I used to work for a bird rescue. Was called out for some other birds, and this lady had this pet chicken with one leg. Her name was Emily, and she survived cancer. I worked on her years ago. She was a 13-year-old chicken with one leg, and I started having this allergic reaction, and I hear in my head, touch the chicken. So I touch the chicken and my allergy goes away. The chicken healed me. And I can't eat chicken because of that now because and it was the day before Thanksgiving. It ruined it for me. I became vegan for like 10 years. I just started eating meat again. But yes, that chicken was like sacred and supernaturally gifted and died on Easter, which I thought was even more appropriate for that chicken. So, anyway, that's my chicken story.
wow. See, I mean, there's all sorts of mysteries, out there that are just fascinating. And the cool thing about that is that there's a connection to everything. Everything is connected to everything else. Like nothing is independent of anything. And I think when we really embrace that concept that, one, we all come from this source and we're all connected, it's mind-boggling, and it gives you a certain sense of reverence of existence. How special and how we all are, and our animals are. And um yeah, I mean, I there's a lot to unpack, in that way, because I liked it. Yeah, it can be an esoteric, cool conversation, but there's a reality around it to really take it to heart and be able to heal, with that, and using your animal as, like, sometimes just a mirror and a reflection, and to say, what is it that I need to look at in my life? Like if your animal is having GI disease, or inflammatory bowel issues, um, do you have inflammatory bowel issues? Do you have upset issue, stuff in your GI? Are you worrying a lot about things? Are you having trouble digesting things? It's a very metaphoric interpretation when it comes to, those kind of things. Like in Chinese medicine, the GI tract carries the energy of worry, right? Every system is connected to an emotion. Like the liver is connected to anger.
Right, I've heard
Lungs,
that.
the lungs are connected to grief. And so everything plays a part in the conversation of the healing. People that are grieving will sometimes get pneumonia. All of a sudden, like someone in their family dies, they're grieving, or their animal dies, and all of a sudden they can't breathe anymore, and they're having trouble with that. And they get sick. They maybe get asthma or emphysema or pneumonia, and they're like, okay, well, what's this about? It could be that you're heavily grieving, and working through those emotions and metabolizing the emotions really, really helps.
So, could we safely say that body manifestations are the body's way to communicate that you are going through this? Because I lately have had a little lung issue. I never thought about it as grief, but I've been slamming the St. John's wort. So I'm like, oh, maybe I am. I have a hard time going from summer to winter. And so that photosensitivity in me, it's just like, oh, end of the year, everything's winding down, everything dies. Like, I hit that kind of thing. And I know myself well enough as like, okay, the minute it gets cold, I'm hitting the St. John's wort to get myself through this holiday season. And I think I've avoided the grief factor.
Yeah, yeah. It's a place, healing is always a place where judgment has no place in it, right? There's no room for judgment. There's no place for it. It's really about just seeing what it is. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're grieving the loss of summer, and into that. And illness, any symptoms and illness is really a biological solution to an emotional conflict. And if we look at that, our bodies in that way, symptoms are never the disease. They are always the body's manifestation, or the way it's communicating with us to say something's wrong. It doesn't tell us that that's the thing that's wrong. um, Unfortunately, in most medicine, in human and conventional medicine with animals, the only thing we're taught is treating symptoms,
Germ
right?
therapy, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And treating symptoms as the disease process. Like, you have hypertension. Oh, I have hypertension. So here's a pill to lower your blood pressure. But you're not addressing why you have that in the first place. And metaphorically, a lot of hypertension is a resistance to going with the flow. It's getting caught up in things and not just relaxing and being at ease with things. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people with hypertension, high blood pressure out there.
Right. And on sleeping aids and antidepressants, and there's a pill for every ill.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
there's an emotional metabolism for every problem you ever have. But it's interesting. It's the very last thing people will want to look at. They don't want, it's too painful.
I
It's
was
too,
just gonna say, I think it's too painful. Yeah, because as you're talking and I'm processing this information, I'm like a little teary-eyed going through this. I'm getting
but
my
you know what?
therapy session here.
Yeah, well, the only way out is through, always, and it's okay. It's okay to be in your emotions. And that is what I like to do is when you embrace all the emotions that you have. I think of emotions like the color spectrum, the red, orange, yellow, green, and the blue, indigo, violet, right? There's no one color that's better than the other, right? The violet has a higher frequency than the red, but it doesn't make red worse than violet,
It's just
right?
different.
So
Yeah.
it's different. So, sadness has a much lower vibration than joy, but it doesn't make it less important, because it all needs to be in our systems and work through, because in that grieving process that you go through, when you it starts out with denial, right? It's anger. This is not happening. Then there's the anger. Then there's the bargaining. Then there's the sadness. And then after sadness is the acceptance, right? And that's the grieving process. And then eventually you're gonna accept that, you're gonna go through acceptance because you've created another level of awareness. And You can't go from denial to acceptance. And you can't. You have to go through the process. And most people get stuck in the anger and the bargaining. They don't move into the sadness. They're like, oh, I hate winter. Well, maybe if I just put on a coat or turn on the lights and pretend that it doesn't exist, then it'll be fine. And then you're in this place. Right.
I'm like, I can't stop it. I can't stop it. I have to learn to cope or go to
right.
Hawaii or move back to SoCal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the cool thing about the seasons is it's going to change. It's going to change. There's no life without death. You need the darkness. You need the winter. And that's a cool time to be in because winter is a time to go within and to really connect with yourself and sit there like, the seeds in the dark in the soil that are just kind of dormant, and waiting and getting the nurturing from the roots and the microorganisms and the fungi and all those cool things in the darkness of the dirt, sitting there waiting. That's an important part of our existence. That's where we connect and we form.
I love that. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. So because you are an ER doctor and you see people out of your mind, out of their mind, their pets are in a crisis situation, how do you implement this this like energetic, blissful, calming effect? I don't even know what to call it because diffusing. I don't know.
um, how do I? Well, I through the Institute of Heart Math that I worked with, I trained with them, so I became a certified trainer for them. And what that Institute of Heart Math is, it's a scientific research institute that researches the intuitive nature of the heart and its connection to, outside world, source, if you want to call it, and ourselves, and how we can in our bodies reach a state of coherence. Coherence is basically when your brain and your heart are in complete alignment. When
And we're
they're
talking physical heart
physical heart, like
and
your
the
heart.
physical having an emotional component connected to the brain.
Yes,
Okay.
right. So the brain and the heart, all right, are big organ systems in our, the heart-brain connection. We think, we feel, we think, we feel, we think, we feel, right? And we get caught up in this loop of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. And what the brain does, the brain is an organ that has hemispheres, and it works in what we call duality. It's polarized. There's yes and no, right and wrong, back and forth, left and right, good, bad, all the pros, cons, blah, blah, blah. We go back and forth in our heads all the time, constantly. When we're trying to figure stuff out, we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The heart is a unified field. It's a unity. It only knows one thing, and it connects with intuition and love. That is like the beauty of the heart. There's all this wisdom, ancient wisdom of the heart. The heart knows the seed. The heart is the seat of, of existence. The seat of our emotions is in our hearts. So the trick is to get the brain to speak the language of the heart, to unify the brain. And scientifically, what that looks like is when our brain waves are in a very calm state, starts off in that alpha state, which is meditative, when we quiet our minds and we slow things down. Like right now, you and I are in a very quick, we're talking, you're listening, we're engaged, you're in a beta state. So your brain waves are pretty fast and you're thinking. But when you go into meditation or your breathing practices or before you go to bed, you start to calm the mind and it becomes alpha. It's an alpha state. And then theta is more hypnotic. Delta is your deep REM dream time state. And when we are in that quieter mentality, quieter brainwave pattern like alpha or theta, the brain will start to quiet down, and then it'll start to have a conversation with the heart. And in more transcendental experiences, when people have these out of body experiences, your brain is in a very hyper energetic state called gamma waves. And that's where like magic happens. That's where there's biological upgrades and spontaneous healings. That's when that happens physiologically. But for like your day-to-day kind of moments of like, how do I calm down and connect with my heart? Um, it's quite simple. You just focus your attention, your mind to focus on your heart space. You know, just think about your heart space. And then you start to breathe. We use our breath to change the physiology. And when we breathe 6 breaths per minute or less, which is really 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out over a minute, if you kind of counted that, that gives us 6 breaths in a minute. And automatically, our sympathetic nervous system will dial down and our stress will get a lot less. Yeah, that's why people say just take a breath, take a 10, take a 10 seconds, take a breath, right? And
Now,
that
do
calms.
you do that with animals? Like, do you breathe with them and try to sync breath with them?
Well, not really, because animals breathe at different rates, right? All animals have a natural pattern that they breathe in. But what you're doing, it's really for the person to calm their system. And when you calm your system, and you're doing the technique to get into a coherent state, which has to do with focusing your attention to the center of your heart, breathing slower than you normally would, and then creating a regenerative emotion like, say, love, or appreciation or care. And when your body is flooded with that emotion in that space, then your mind and your heart are in sync. And then your body is in alignment. And your body's systems are in alignment. Your endocrine system, your immune system, your other hormonal systems, your autonomic nervous system, right? And then you take that and you radiate that feeling of love and care out. And that's what you send to your animal, is from that place, that emotion in that frequency. And then you guys can be in like a love bubble, of healing. And that's what that means to be in a coherent state. And that is the extremely organized energetic state of existence. That's what the universe is striving to be in. It strives for coherence. Its natural default is coherence. We mess it up by throwing all sorts of crazy emotions and thoughts of negativity into the system. Like worry, like, oh my God, my dog is so sick and he's never going to be better. And how am I going to live without him? And like all of that is jamming up the system.
Yeah. And bitterness and like mental self-talk. I really struggle with that. Like I really have to like speak positive to myself all the time. Like, no, don't say that. That's harmful. Like, let's rewire that. Let's focus on the assets, not the awfuls. And yeah.
Right. And even saying those kind of things, you're still in sort of judgmental phase. You're judging yourself for not feeling positive.
Yeah, I'm judging myself for judging myself.
Right. Right. So it's a kind of just get out of that. So if you do the coherence technique where you have no attachment to anything except the being in the moment of what you're doing, you will automatically reset your physiology. And then eventually, like if you find yourself in those moments of negative thinking, stop, take a moment, focus your attention to your heart, breathe, find that feeling of love and care. Think of like a memory, of an amazing memory, a beautiful, fantastic memory, and relive the memory. And then eventually what you're going to find is that your body with practice is going to get so used to that sensation and that feeling that you're going to start changing your brain chemistry. You're going to start changing the way your brain is wired and how your physiology is working. And
Well,
then
it's hard because if I like roll this negative thought pattern. Now I'm affecting him.
Yeah, but it's more dynamic than that. Like it's not a linear thing,
Okay.
because there's all these different emotions going on, and they're in this happy place. I mean, you can see in your animals sometimes they are so happy that when you're not, it makes you happy,
Right.
right? They start doing
They're
silly
like,
things, crazy things. They're like, no, don't be like that. Let's play. Right. And so you're like, okay, let's play. And so you feel better. So it's a dynamic world, right? There's nothing static, and there's so much information that's coming in from all different places that it's really catching yourself and having the awareness of that. Once you actually get the awareness that, oh, I am feeling kind of sad today. I wonder, and what's making me sad? Then it gives you an opportunity to process that. So even if you have an awareness that, my energy is going to affect my dog, well, that's a beautiful awareness, because that's going to be the stepping stone to shift that.
right. I might not shift it for myself, but for my animals, I'll work a lot harder to
Well,
shift that.
right there you go. There you go.
It's interesting because there's a lot of sick, unhealthy, unhappy people in the world, and it makes me feel bad. I also feel blessed that I'm not perpetuating that spiral. But how do we break it on a global level or even a microcosm aspect for people around us? How can we be the change?
Just by yourself. It's like I tell people, be the change that you want to see in the world. And if being with if nothing else, if the awareness around that entanglement is going to create you to focus more about on yourself, to heal yourself, to help your animal, well, that's beautiful. And if one person does that, it's going to have a ripple effect on everybody else, because everything is connected. And I mean, and this has been measured, like the Heart Math Institute measures this. They have sensors that are all over the globe that measures the emotional frequencies of people and how it affects our geomagnetic sphere around the earth,
Wow.
and the frequencies around that. So there's a lot of, we know that it affects everything. We know that people can do these massive sit-ins or these group-ins where they're praying, right? Group prayers or group coherence, and you're making a huge shift and a change in places across the globe.
It's
You know,
really profound, actually.
it's very profound. Lynn McTaggart has done a lot of research into this, and she has, if you Google her, Lynn McTaggart, she wrote a book called The Field. She wrote a book called The Intention Experiment, where she's doing a lot of like human studies on how group intention can change anything, and create healing and group healing, like getting 8 people in a circle intending to heal a person in the middle will have a profound effect on the healing of that person in the middle.
We
And
actually do pet prayers in this membership. So,
yeah,
so every quarter we come together and pray for each other and our pets and stuff. And we see some pretty profound things. You did talk about like spontaneous healing. I'm really interested in that. Can you dabble in that discussion? Have you
uh,
witnessed like this spontaneous healing?
well, I have witnessed like stories of spontaneous healing. Like, are you familiar with Joe Dispenza?
No.
Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has spent his life working with people to create mechanisms for spontaneous healings. And he has workshops across the globe. Like if you look at him, he's written many books called "You Are the Placebo Effect," or I think how to change your mind by changing your being or something like that. But he has a lot of amazing books that he's written about that mechanism of spontaneous remission. And it seems that people who undergo spontaneous remissions have the same sort of patterns of what they're doing that creates it. Um, I don't think we have probably enough time to go into that, but in his books, he talks about that, the 4 pillars of change. And it's really, it's a lot of it is about the epigenetics of the shifting of your own physiology and your DNA expression, of changing your mind, changing your thoughts, changing your emotions, changing yourself to be a different person.
Well, and the reason why I brought it up is it's a quest of mine. It's totally a quest. I'm actually Christian and I was diagnosed with hemochromatosis. My sister has it, my mom had it, and after I quit cycling, my body started turning on itself. I turned super bronze. I looked like I was at the tanning salon all the time. I didn't quite understand what was going on, but then I couldn't move my hand and everything started freezing on me. And I went to this prayer place up in Redding, California, and they put hands on me. They prayed for me. Something literally left my body, and I was cured. I was literally cured in that moment. Hands came back to normal, went and got blood work that Friday, gone, totally gone. And I was just like, this is my quest at this point, as I would love to see that. I've seen it. I've been used as a vessel for it on a horse with strangles. Some lady brought a horse over to my ranch to work on, and she didn't tell me the horse had strangles. And she pulls up in her trailer and she goes, yeah, my horse has strangles. I'm like, you are not unloading your horse here. Like, I'll go in the trailer, we'll do whatever. And I literally like prayed, laid hands on. I saw a puff of smoke come out of this horse's wither. And I was like, I don't know what that is. That's so weird. She goes home. She calls me like 2 days later and she goes, my horse is healed. I'm like, what? Oh, and I didn't expect that. And so it's just something that's always in the back of my head because I know it can be done. I've witnessed it and I've been a recipient of it. And so I think I said,
Yeah, well, I feel like though that's connecting. I mean, there's many ways to think about that, but in sort of a medical sense of quantum realm, physical sense, that you're connecting to source,
yeah,
right? Which is this essence of perfection, this ultimate coherence of life and energy, right? And so it's everything that is coherent. Energy is so profoundly strong, and it's all healed. It's like this I don't want to use the word perfection because it kind of lends itself to like imperfection, but it is um this just beautiful coherent system where everything is working perfectly. Right? I'm going to use the word perfectly, right? And so when you connect with that, then you allow that in, and then the body's, like I said, the default of the body is to be in that coherent state. And that's what when you channel energies like healers, energy healers, all they're doing is channeling that source into something else. You're just a vehicle. In shamanic medicine, we call that being a hollow bone. You're a hollow bone. You're just tunnels. You're a conduit for healing, and the energy is love. It's just like this allowance and acceptance. You get out of the way, and you just allow it to be. And it's not woo woo. It's like real. It's tangible and palpable.
it is. And thank you for your time today. It went by so fast. I could talk to you all day. You're so fascinating, Dr. Barrie. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time. And do you implement this with your animals, like just praying for them or laying hands or meditating with them, like transference or just
Yeah.
jiving with them, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, my personal animals, like all the time, we're always at this interplay, and they're pretty healthy. I have my cats are living in to like their 20s. My dogs don't have any issues. They seem to be fine, and um, and the animals that I see in my practice, I try to do whatever I can. And keep that in mind though, when there's a human that's attached to the animal, right? The relationship that they have, there's only so much that I could do as a healer if the person isn't open for that interaction. There has to be this agreement that, yeah, I'm going to allow this to be. Because if you have a person who doesn't believe in any of this and they just want some drugs, well, they're gonna need drugs, you know.
Interesting. And it's fascinating because I've been in the holistic health realm for like 30 years. And I've noticed like homeopathy, I love, herbs, I love. There's certain modalities like Bach flowers and things like that. It's not my thing. But it might be like what might work on a horse, one horse doesn't work on the other horse. Like PMF might be awesome, but the other horse hates it and doesn't like it. And so you have to be like receptive and resilient and flow with, okay, it's not your thing. And
Right,
it's, yeah,
right. Yeah, I feel like just animals are like people in the sense where they resonate with different things. It's like even in when people go to dive into spiritual health or self-help, there's all these different people that they may be listening to. And someone might resonate with Tony Robbins, or Abraham Hicks, or Louise Hayes, or Bruce Lipton. I don't know, just I'm just throwing names out, but not everybody will everyone's saying the same thing. Like literally everyone's saying the same thing, but just slightly different ways. And you may just listen to someone and go, oh, now I get it, right? And it gives you that aha moment. And I feel like it's the same thing with healing modalities. One thing will work and something else won't, and then you just have to be flexible and open. And that's what muscle testing is about. And you kind of asking the question, like, who are you asking?
I
Like,
know. When my mentor, that was the one thing I kept asking him. I was like, this is creepy. Like, how does the body know this? How does everything know this? So I actually pray before I muscle test because I'm like, this just feels weird.
yeah,
Because it's just ambiguous out there. I'm like, but it works as long
right.
as
But it's not,
you're
and it's not
centered.
right. And it's not as ambiguous as you think it is. It's very direct. And when you're allowing your intuition to be the voice and the receiver and the ears of that, then it makes sense, because it's your subconscious that's listening, and it's your higher selves, or whatever that is, your ethereal self that's tapping in to this information that's out there in the universe, in this field, in that 0 point field.
And when you say that we're so many dimensions in my mind, I'm like, I think we're so many more dimensions than that. Yeah.
No, infinite, I don't know.
It's very exciting times.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
great to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much. You've been with us for over an hour and
I
I
know it's so
appreciate it.
long. I'm sure people that clicked off and like, I'm done.
No,
Okay.
they're still here. They're still watching. So you're good. You're solid.
Well, thanks for hanging with us. It's always fun, very unscripted, sort of organic conversation. God knows where it went.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna keep working towards spontaneous healing, being the vessel.
Yeah, and just allowing it, no judgment, and it's all okay. Truly, it's all okay. You know.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Right
Yeah.
on.
Well. You're welcome.
Please feel free to come back. I know you also do all sorts of other things. So we would love to have another conversation if you're up for it.
Yeah, and if people want to know more a little bit about me, they could just go to my website, drbarriesands.com. Um, I have a blog there with lots of information that I like to post, and I do telemedicine and all sorts of things. So
Great. So yes, you can do Zoom calls. People can join on that. And if you're in the Southern California area, in the San Diego area, which might be your ER nurse, not nurse, doctor. Sorry about that.
doctor, yeah, I
Doctor.
mean,
And
yeah,
never
I,
know.
I literally tell people that my goal as a veterinarian is for you not to need me, to just not at all, that's my goal, to empower everyone to be the healing mechanisms that I know that they are, you know.
That's amazing. I love that. What a great parting word. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Bless you. Bye.